Namaskara. Good morning to you all. Professor Yashwant Dogre, Vice Chancellor of Chanakya University, Professor Ashok, Dean Research of Ashoka University, my colleague in a way in IKS division working from AICT office, Dr. Ganti Murthy, and we have Professor M.K. Sridhar, Chancellor of Chanakya University, Professor Sadgopanji, who has been a source of inspiration to all of us, Madam Mala Kapadia, who is also another source of inspiration for doing all this work, Professor Vinayak Bhatt, who was with me yesterday in another program in Hyderabad on the same topic, and most importantly, Professor K.V. Raju, who initiated this even before the birth of Chanakya University. Informally, we were chatting in the room that we should also not only teach our students IKS in the school, high school and other places, but also to mothers because of Garbha Samskara. And this particular conference is like Garbha Samskara because it was started even before the university was established. So I think the mother is K.V. Raju. So that is how he has given samskaras to this particular organization, where there are three major organizations along with Chanakya University who are associated. Number one, Art of Living, who are also part of in Bangalore big activities which they do. Central Sanskrit University, a university which talks about our ancient wisdom which is available in Sanskrit, and the Indian Knowledge Systems Division of the Ministry of Education, which is right now working from the portals of AICT in Delhi. Now, I think all these four who are together, they are going to contribute in this particular conference in a big way. But what was more exciting and important, which I learned when Professor Ashok was saying, was there were 72 papers which came in the beginning with 500 words, blind review, and then shortlisted further. And finally, a 8,000 word paper has come from 29 researchers. So that itself is a great thought process which has begun, that before the birth of a university, thinking about a conference of this nature for 3 days and getting all that wisdom which is embedded in our ancient scriptures to bring it out and place it before the community of people is a very great idea which has started. And I was also given to understand while taking a cup of tea outside, coffee, that there are two other conferences. One on Chanakya himself is also going to be there next year, and the third one on the governance structure, which is so important for our educational institutions. All three conferences which are envisaged are very important at a crucial juncture when India has completed its 75 years of independence, taking away from British our own self-rule. And we are talking about Amrit Kal, the next 25 years, how do we want to navigate? And during such an important phase, when the leadership of G20 is with India, presidentship, also that of the leadership of Shanghai Cooperation Movement. At this juncture, the role of Chanakya University and the way we are going to go forward is very, very important and crucial. The very topic itself is about issues, strategies, and way forward. So we have been learning about issues regarding the Indian knowledge systems. They are too vast, starting from true understanding of what is Indian knowledge system itself. Whether yesterday our friend Bhatt was saying about people have a lot of misgivings about IKS as a subject, as a course, but it is a multidisciplinary, multidimensional resource which exists, which is all put together called as Indian knowledge systems. So it is like the elephant and four blind men. If you ask them what is the elephant like, they will all touch one part of the body of the elephant and state about it. Same way, different people tell about IKS in different ways. For some it is the ancient knowledge, only ancient, nothing to do with today, whereas some others will ignore some of the things, and therefore understanding Indian knowledge systems in its true sense is very, very important. And I would like to deal with it from two aspects. First aspect is that of all the achievements that are done in the past from the ancient times, maybe 8,000 years of history. Sometimes people talk about even more than 10,000, 15,000 years, but at least some of the recorded history that is available is about 7,000, 8,000 years. And therefore, in this 8,000 years, what all we achieved is tabulated, recorded in different documentation, some of that in oral traditions, some of them in the written form, on the leaves, etc., in some of that in the paper print form, today in the form of the internet and the storage which is available on the computers. All of that knowledge or the information which is available is one part of the story. Here also there are three different aspects of that. Some aspects are such that are already recognized, well documented, accepted across the globe, be it in terms of the knowledge that is available in chemistry, be it knowledge in terms of mathematics, in physics, in philosophy, in economics. People have recognized the contribution that Bharat made for thousands of years, and it is well known, and we must be proud of that. We should also talk about it in all the platforms. There is a second type of knowledge which is available in terms of some of these verses in various Vedas, Upanishads, where we have not validated. We have some kind of a insight into it, but claiming it that we had all of this sometimes creates problems. And therefore, there are some elements which are on the fringe. We need to investigate them scientifically, prove that they did exist and they are really truly possible to be used today, and then talk about them. So this is the second one. The third one is sometimes we go to the extreme extent and fantasize and talk about some of the issues like Ganesha. We had a surgery made and then the elephant head was put on to it. We do not know what all things are there. There may be mythological stories. There could be some of that may also be a fact. But unless we investigate scientifically in terms of modern science that it is acceptable, we should not go ahead. So I think even the knowledge which is available, the information is available, is in three parts. The first part, we should all be proud and we should tell it to everyone at nooks and corners, on the streets, on the colleges and the universities, in the schools, everywhere we must propagate that knowledge, because many of us even do not know about it, and that is the what of it. It's very, very important. The second part, the Indian Knowledge Systems Division of the Ministry of Education has limited funds today, but I'm sure if the results of the research activities which you all are going to undertake as part of the research projects, centers of excellence established in different universities, if there is a strength in whatever work you are doing, I'm sure ministry will also start giving more and more funds, and there would be probably modern instrumentation can be also bought from out of this, and try to investigate all those factors which are provided in the Granthas, in the Upanishads, in the Vedas, to validate them and then bring it out to the mankind. So this is the second part which can start becoming. The third part is the most dangerous. Please avoid it, because it will bring bad name. Many times when we speak in loose tongue, that is carried forward in the different either news media, television media, and then they become a laughing stock. What all good things are there also will get vanished out in the process. And that's why understanding in detail what was our real achievement is very, very significant and important. And that's why this conference will give credence to all such activities and works that were there in the past and which are validated will come out. There are many activities which Indian Knowledge Systems Division is undertaking. I think I will speak only little about it, because in the future there are different sessions where Dr. Ganti Murthy is going to be there, so he will certainly talk about in greater detail what all activities are being supported and how do we make this what to be very, very powerful and go forward. The next part, which is also significant in the Indian knowledge system, is this is what is created earlier, which we know some of that to be investigated. But the more important part other than that is the methodology of the ancient rishis and scientists, the way they operated. Because, for example, you take the case in astronomy, for example, that today we have different types of radio telescopes, very powerful of them, and they can even look into the sky billions of light years away and then interpret what are the galaxies that exist beyond what we are able to see in the naked eye. But some of these things were also talked about in our ancient wisdom without having these telescopes. So what was that method or methodology? We will not probably go into the galaxies, but at least as far as our solar system is concerned, much before the earth is round or before that earth revolves around the sun, the entire set of planets revolve around the sun, which was told by Copernicus. And much before that, we had in our system, this was a knowledge which was available, and that is why all astronomical happenings, whether it is in terms of eclipses, solar or lunar, were able to be predicted through the Panchangas very accurately. So what was the mechanism? How did they investigate that? Is a methodology, is a framework which we do not know. Similarly, in terms of experimental science, be it chemistry, be it material science, be it construction technology, be it temple architecture and temple construction, in all these domains, including health, in terms of Ayurveda, there has been a recorded set of things which transferred from one generation to the other generation through the transfer of knowledge between Guru to Shishya, and Shishya many times questioned why and how of it, and then after explanation was given, sometimes he accepted, sometimes he gave a different rational theory behind that and then moved ahead. And therefore, the knowledge which exists in the Indian knowledge systems is not static. Please understand that it is absolutely scientific. It is like a stream of river continuously flowing, and therefore the knowledge Sarita is flowing. Actually, this wisdom is continuing from about 8,000 years till about 1835, when Macaulay came in and then said that this entire education system should be scrapped, and where about more than lakhs of schools were there, Gurukulas were there, they were all closed down, and then the English language teaching started to produce clerks, where our original thinking is completely stopped. And therefore, along with that, in the process of that 1835 to 2020, when the new national education policy came in, we all had forgotten our past and our glory that existed, and that Vismarana has happened. And Vismarana se Smaran ko jane ke liye, ye Indian knowledge system is very important. A conference like this, which is held under the banner of Chanakya University, is very important. I think this is very, very critical and crucial at this juncture. The national education policy also talks about the Indian knowledge systems and the value system that we had inherited in a big way, that such a policy which came after 34 years after the last policy has a lot of nuances which talk about multidisciplinary nature, multiple entry, multiple exit, talks about use of digital phenomena in terms of education. That is having a mix of ancient and the modern, and it talks about modernity in terms of how do we use computers, networks, all of that. And today we all know that there is ChatGPT. We have Google, which gives a lot of information. But how do you look at the information available and analyze it, convert it into the true knowledge, wisdom, and how do you make use of that wisdom to solve the problems and challenges that the society is facing today? That means applications. And therefore, when we talk about Indian knowledge systems, it is not just the methodology, the framework, the content which existed, but how do you make it use of that whole knowledge, make it contemporary to today's needs, be it in terms of environment, how do we protect environment? We had such beautiful texts which are available which take care of environment. Today, the entire United Nations talks about Sustainable Development Goals, 17 Sustainable Development Goals, all SDGs, and most important SDG is the SDG 4, which is on education. I often say that all other 16 goals are linked, connected with the education. Without education, none of them can be achieved, and therefore education becomes very, very important. And one of the themes of this today's conference is education, and how do we deal with education. And that's why when we are talking about issues, all of these issues have to be important. So on one side, there are people who are attacking Indian knowledge system. So how do we reply to them? How do we tell them what is truth and how truth has to be respected? Because when most of them talk about scientific spirit and investigation and all that, I said, why are you blindly rejecting something? If you are scientific, then investigate and find out and then reject it, not before that. And therefore, the spirit of science, that means scientific spirit, has to be in terms of neither accepting nor rejecting, but investigation. That's how any hypothesis which was made in the ancient past was then corroborated through experimentation, through not 1 year, 2 years, but thousands of years, from one generation to the other generation, and then it was recorded. And similarly, today also, in physics, for example, Newton said something in 16th, 17th century, then Newtonian mechanics gives way to the theory of the Einstein, where both theory of relativity and theory of special relativity come in. Today we talk about different forces of nature, not only gravitation, weak forces, strong forces, magnetic force, all of that. How do we integrate all of them? So I think science is also continuously investigating and trying to find out the ultimate truth. And no one knows the ultimate truth, so we are moving in that direction asymptotically. Same way our Rishis and Munis were doing, and therefore our whole philosophy has to be moving in the same direction. We had the mighty Saraswati river which has vanished. Almost something similar to that, our Indian knowledge system, which was flowing as a mighty river, Ganga or Kaveri or Brahmaputra or the Tungabhadra, is slightly becoming narrower, and it has become a small stream from a large river which it was. And our now concern is how we can rejuvenate that Saraswati river. It means how do we rejuvenate all that knowledge system that existed and make it contextual to today's needs and today's requirements, and use even modern tools, be it microscope. Today, as I said, telescope can see thousands and thousands of galaxies which are away from Earth. We can observe them. We can also observe the smallest of the smallest particles through not only ordinary electron microscope, but transmission electron microscope, and even further divisions which have been made. And therefore, from absolute micro nano level to a macro mega level, we have got all the equipments which are available. But our framework, without all this equipment, how was it doing it? Is a very big question mark. We must try to find out the source of that. We have to again reinvestigate that, make use of that philosophy as well as the modern philosophy of scientific investigation. So all of them are based on postulates. Then you start doing some experimentation, you validate it, then you build a theory around it, and then it becomes a scientifically accepted thing. And this is true for not only science, whether it is in physics, chemistry, maths and biology, but also in the case of history, in terms of psychology, in terms of economics. In almost all the domains, we have a specific framework which has to be used in order to understand the nuances and move ahead. I think the conference will certainly give a certain direction to make us all understand what are those nuances and how do we have to go forward. And these are the issues which are before us, and these are all going to be discussed. Then comes the strategy. As I said, the strategy is important. Since we have lost valuable about 200 odd years, to catch up 200 years is not possible in some minutes or hours. It will also take some years. If not 1 or 2 years, at least we should give about a decade of time. One decade means around 10 years time to rejuvenate ourselves to the same level as what we were as a Vishwa Guru, and providing this knowledge power to the entire globe. And that is very, very important. And therefore, with the what, the issues, the strategy has to be developed. And one of the strategies which has been given in the National Education Policy, thanks to Dr. Kasturi Rangan Committee, Dr. M.K. Sridhar, who is there, who all stated this multiple times in this policy, has to be now not in the books, in the cupboards and almirahs, but in practice. And therefore, the roadmap has to be created, a strategy is to be formulated, and action has to start. Some actions have already begun. For example, our national curricular framework, right from school education to higher education, is under process. Some of that has come out. Some very interesting things have come out. I think some of you must have read in the newspapers, there is a national curricular framework which is announced. The early childhood education, the foundational education, which starts at the age of 3 in the new school education system. Instead of 10 plus 2, we are talking about 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4. The child entering into the school at the age of 3, what all the child has to be given. Instead of pressurizing or creating tension in the minds of the students at that age, they should be playing games and still learning. And that's why, whether it is through the toys, stories, games, how we can create that model of education where Indian knowledge system is also embedded. There are stories of Prahlada, maybe told in a manner that the spirit of Indian knowledge system is imbibed by a child of 3 years, which can understand the level at which it can understand. We should project it. We can create short video movies which will excite the child to see that. You can create games. Murthy ji has already created some games where they will understand the nuances of our spiritualism at the young age of 5, 6 itself. So such games, toys are important. They are being developed. There is a Jadui Pitara which has already been come in. And our appeal has been some sample case studies, some sample games, some sample material has been created. But India, with its 1.4 billion population, 50% of that being below in the working age population, and about 1/3 of that being young, the demographic dividend which we often talk about. All of these people have very interesting, innovative ideas. How can you contribute towards this is a very important thing. It is not just some XYZ doing something, but how I can also contribute in terms of creating stories which are locally relevant, maybe in some tribal area, maybe in some rural area. How can we combine all of them, create a short video, short game, which will excite our students to learn, understand subjects like mathematics. Many times I have seen in the schools, mathematics is detested by most of the students. The reason being the way mathematics is taught by teachers in a very abstract form. How can you make it interesting? How can you involve certain games into that and make it interesting? For some others, history may be boring because you have been telling that so-and-so did in 1800 this one and 1000 BC. What is it to do with me? But how do you excite a student to learn history? How do you excite a student to learn civics? I think there are possibly good quality of teachers who are required who will be able to enthuse our students. And that's why on one side, the curriculum framework is coming up. There is some content being given. How that content can be made more interesting using all modern technologies, be it augmented reality, virtual reality. We have today metaverse. We have chat GPT. Why can't we have our own Indian GPT which will provide all the information in the form of the requirement? One other thing which we are all missing is many of these things which we do follow in our day-to-day practice as our culture, our traditions, we don't know the reasoning behind that. We do something, daily puja karna hai, tulsi ka puja karna hai. We will also say that we must respect some of these trees, and we are not knowing what is the reason behind that. So how we can bring out this knowledge in terms of short stories and excite our children in order to understand the reasoning behind that. Without reasoning, today's young generation will not accept you. I'll tell you, they will ask 100 questions and we will have to be prepared to answer 1,000 answers actually to that. And unless we prepare ourselves, it is not possible. So on one side, the curriculum has to be changed, modernized, bring both ancient and the modern together into it, start teaching a topic with its history, that all of this emanated from India. Bharat is also very, very important, but it has grown further in the West, and that we are emulating, we are practicing, and we will have to take all the best knowledge available anywhere in the world to us and then start dealing with that. How do we create applications to today's problems, be it environment challenge, which we have, temperature rise, which is happening continuously. How do you address that issue? How do you create water bodies which are pure? We all know that we were drinking water straight from the river about not more than 30 years ago, 40 years ago. Today, none of these rivers are not worth not only not drinking, but even taking bath. They have been polluted to such an extent. How do you clear them up? What technology of the past and the present can be used together? How do you continue to do our research in this Indian knowledge system? I think these are very, very valid and important questions which we have to address when we are creating our strategy. So in the strategy, on one side, the curriculum framework is to be created, but teaching is very important. How our teachers can really create interesting content, and the teacher training is important. So the train the trainers is another issue and area which we have to address. Those who have been practicing it, those who know in-depth knowledge, they should take the classes for other teachers, involve them, make them also start learning themselves. And that philosophy of learning to learn, and learning is never stops, from our birth to death, that philosophy has to be imbibed. And that is what our rishis and munis were doing. And so we have to move in that direction. So if you do that, our strategy is very clear. We should have a roadmap for 10 years. First 1 year, we will have this curriculum content ready. We will have teacher training. We will have the books ready. We will involve what we call crowdsourcing, And the crowdsourcing is the best possible method which is available today. And that's how wikis have grown. And therefore, our own wiki of Indian knowledge systems with validated content has to come out in the form of Indian knowledge system wiki. We have committed. Murthyji, we are falling behind the schedule, so we must catch up now. So we will catch up and then produce that. And then lot of material which is available, which is scattered. When I said the different types of rivers which have all shrunk, our knowledge streams have also shrunk. But they have not dried up. Please remember, Saraswati might have completely dried up, but our knowledge systems have not dried up. There are pockets of activities which are happening. Somewhere in Chennai, someone is doing some work. In Mysore, someone is doing. Someone in Bangalore, someone in Pune, someone in Panipat, someone in Punjab, in Haryana, Amritsar, someone in Bhubaneswar, someone in Kolkata, someone in Guwahati. In tribal areas, we have the knowledge system streams. They are still existing, but they are not connected to each other. And that's why this Indian knowledge systems and the Chanakya University should start working on what we call as collaboration. And I think that is important. What someone is doing, we should learn from them and do not repeat it, do something advanced. Like our research, what we do is we refer to some 10 papers and then move ahead. We may do some incremental work, but we refer to all the 10 papers. Similarly, all the other universities and the places where Indian knowledge systems work is going on, we must be aware of it. And therefore, a single portal where information about all of them is available. They will reach out to each other. They will collaborate, cooperate with each other. And if you do that, I think no one can stop us from continuing to have the wisdom which India was giving to the rest of the world to continue to give today also. Some samples are visible today also, whether it is in mathematics or whether it is in chemistry. Modern research also is being conducted and our scientists are found in the top 2%. Certainly, yes, but their methodology is a modern methodology. How do we combine the methodology and the framework of the past as well as the present and move ahead is a challenge which has to be one of the parts of the strategy which we have to do. And therefore, then the way forward naturally is all of us who are sitting here, today maybe only 100 people are here. How this 100 can become 10,000, how 10,000 can become a million, how a million can become 1 crore, 10 crore and 100 crore. We have 140 crore. So I think we have a big task ahead of us. And therefore, in the 10 years, we have a clear roadmap of moving ahead and creating that same virtue which we had in the past. How do we reproduce it is very, very important. And some basic philosophy we should not forget. That is, I keep often telling about this regime of patents which has come. Yesterday also I referred to that, it's very important. We are not interested in patenting per se because all our Vedas, Upanishads were all open book. Anyone can take, anyone can learn and make use of it. That is our spirit. And we also, in our own parlance, we all say Vidya, Dana. We never talk about charging a fee for giving them. Of course, there was Guru Dakshina, but it was voluntary. After the Gyan is already imparted. If you want, you give it, otherwise forget it. So, our philosophy of providing knowledge, dissemination of knowledge is truly global, creating that availability to everyone. But in the regime of patent, what has happened is our knowledge, they do some investigation using modern equipment and then patent it, and then probably tomorrow sell it to us, and therefore our economic freedom again can be endangered. British may not come in the form of the way they are, Americans and some others will come in a different form and say that for using neem, you have to pay royalty. For using some turmeric, you have to pay royalty. Somehow we won the war on turmeric, but many other wars are still to be won. And how do we investigate all this wisdom and patent not for making profit, patent for providing that information to the rest of the world. Maybe we will give free of cost, but it should be available because no one should charge fee to us only. The original knowledge provider should not get that taxed in a way. And that is why this is a very, very significant and important thing which we should also address when we are talking about way forward. The way forward, therefore, is our economic freedom. Today we talk about Atmanirbhar Bharat. Atmanirbharta will come only when we have all of this knowledge available to us as well as to the whole world. And therefore, again coming back like Vidya Dana, we have always the spirit of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. Today world is talking about world as one family, but we have always been talking about world as one family and always helped, supported others. Sarve Janaha Sukhino Bhavantu. So we want everyone to be happy, not only human beings, but all animals, all living creatures, including plants. So who are these people to teach us SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals? The spirit of Sustainable Development Goals is embedded in our DNA. It's only to be brought out. उसको दोबारा उजागर करना. जो विस्मृति हुई है, उसको स्मृति में लाना. ये हमारा इंडियन नॉलेज सिस्टम्स का बहुत बड़ा काम है और उसको करने के लिए आप सब लोग कटिबद्ध है और मुझे गारंटी है 100% कि अगले 5-6 साल में उसका रिजल्ट दिखने लगेगा. In another 10 years, we will be in a position to really showcase to the world. ನಿಮಗೆಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ನನ್ನ ನಮಸ್ಕಾರಗಳು. ಮತ್ತೆ ಇನ್ನು ಕೆಲಸ ಮುಂದುವರಿಸೋಣ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ನನ್ನ 4 ಮಾತುಗಳನ್ನು ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಮುಗಿಸ್ತೇನೆ. ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ.